Greetings fellow Earthlings and welcome to Darlingborough Sci-Fi Builds. In my last video I started to build a Guyver unit from scratch. In this video I continue my build, hoping to take one step closer to harnessing the power of the Guyver. The first thing I needed to do was to complete the biological element of the unit. I'd already finished the back, so I needed to finish the front and also the sides. As per my previous video, I used my hot glue gun to stick washing line to the structure. I felt that this method was working out really well so far. It was coming out exactly as I planned, and I felt that it was giving me the aesthetic that was depicted in the manga versions of the Guyver series. One downfall I found, however, was that I was going through a lot of hot glue sticks. I was actually starting to wonder if I had enough on hand to complete what I wanted to do on the model. I also needed to finish the biological organism on the sides of the unit. The main problem was these bits of wood. As you can see, there is a big gap between them. The main issue that I had was trying to get the washing line on the sides to go round in a curve rather than just follow the contours of the wood. I decided that one of the easiest ways to do this was simply to use a few sheets of cardboard. I cut some strips of cardboard to the same width as the unit. In order for them to curve around the unit, I cut down all of the corrugations in the card. This allowed me to add a nice smooth curve rather than having the cardboard fold unevenly. I also decided to add a little bit of padding onto the wooden blocks that I'd used to build the structure. The padding was basically made using 2-inch square pieces of cardboard. I also glued on another smaller rectangle of cardboard just to help add to the curve. I pre-built these and then I attached them using more hot glue to the sides of the structure. These extra padding pieces just helped me to make sure that when I was attaching the sides, they remained round. Once I had finished attaching the cardboard to the side of the unit, I then continued adding more washing line using the hot glue. I definitely feel that attaching the washing line is the most long-winded way of doing it. It's taken forever and I've still got to finish this bit here. Sadly it's about 1:30 in the morning and I've just ran out of washing line, so I'm gonna have to stop it now and go and get some sleep because my throat's killing me and carry on another day. I'm also going to have to get some more glue sticks because this is taking up a lot of glue, hot glue. So yeah, I'm going to have to go back to the pound shop and get some more because I'm getting low. I'm pleased with it so far. So really good. The following day, I visited my local pound shop to stock up on more washing line and some more hot glue. Although I wanted to make sure I had enough hot glue to finish off the model, I decided that I didn't want to appear to be too greedy. That evening I finished attaching the rest of the washing line to the sides of the model off camera. For the front of the unit, I created a separate insert out of polystyrene. As the front of the unit tapers inwards towards the control medal, I simply cut away a shape so that it was beveled on the inside, and then left a hole where I will be installing the control medal. The idea is that this insert will be inserted into the model once the electronics have been installed. I will then use some magic trickery in order to hide any visible seams before painting and completing the model. So far, I must admit that I am extremely happy with how well the model is turning out. I feel that the washing line and the hot glue combination has worked out very, very well. It's given me the aesthetics I'm looking for, and also, as a bonus, it's actually quite a nice piece to touch. It's very tactile. It's got a very interesting texture as well. It's also very sturdy as well, and I don't have to worry about breaking it. I'm now extremely excited about seeing this piece put together with the control medal, the lights and the sounds, and also the outer protective casing. Can't wait to see it all painted up. Now, speaking of painting, in my last video I talked about how I built the control medal and how I was planning on painting it using some chrome spray paint. I also showed you how I had previously painted it and how it didn't really work very well. I did also mention the fact that the spray paint that I had used didn't really turn out as shiny and reflective as I was expecting. I decided to try using some alternative spray paint. This one I bought for £4.99 from Aldi here in the UK. Again, it's promising a mirror-like finish, but I thought I'd give it a test. Maybe go head to head and see what turns out the best. In order to compare each of the paints, I decided to make up some test boards using some cardboard and some plastic spoons. Using masking tape, I attached 2 spoons to each sheet of cardboard, making sure I noted which primer I was using for each of the tests. I used white, grey and a black satin spray paint underneath the chrome finishes. I wanted to see if that helped with the reflective properties of the chrome spray paints. In addition, as a control test, I left one of the pairs of spoons unprimed as well. I then gave each pair of spoons a coating in a different primer, making sure that they were covered evenly. Once the primers had dried, I then took it in turns to paint each one of them with a different chrome paint to see if there was any difference. And I wanted to see if it was possible to get a finish that looked like the mirror finish as promised on the lids. I also needed to find out if there was a specific formula to follow in order to get the finish that I was looking for. Now, when you are coming to use any kind of spray paint, either in a tin or using an airbrush, it's always best to try and ventilate your area as best as possible. Ideally, you would have a dedicated spray booth. Unfortunately, I don't have one set up, so I'm just going to open the door. Just makes it a little bit more safe rather than inside the shed. Looking at the final results, it's actually quite surprising. I've noticed that the Easy Home silver paint, which is actually cheaper than the one I bought from Aldi, performed a lot better than the Plastic Coat brilliant metallic finish. Overall, the Easy Home paint is a lot more reflective than the Plastic Coat. It's also quite surprising to note that the primer used didn't really have much of an effect. Ironically, I feel that the test piece, without any primer, actually performed slightly better than the others. Although it doesn't actually show particularly well on camera, there is a noticeable difference between the two finishes. Obviously, these are only a comparison between 2 different spray paints. I am aware that there are various other brands available, some of which may or may not perform better than the ones I already have. This cap is not an exact representation of the finish that can be achieved with this product. Unfortunately, I don't have the time or the budget to purchase a wide range of spray paints at this particular moment and compare them. However, if you are interested in seeing that in a future video, drop me a comment down below and let me know. Perhaps I can find a sponsor who would be interested in putting forward some of this paint, and I can do a really good bench test. Having noted the results of these two paint comparisons, I have made the final decision to use the Aldi Easy Home Paint to spray the control medal. I'm not going to use any primer, I'm going to just spray the paint directly onto the model. In order to make sure that I have a light ring around it, I have purchased some thin masking tape and applied this around the bottom of the dome. I'm going to leave this until the paint dries before removing it. This will then leave a gap for the light to emit from. Once I had made my final decision, I then used the paint and sprayed the control medal. Whilst allowing it to dry, I made a dust cover using some cardboard and my cutting mat. Hopefully, this will prevent any dust getting to the paint while it's drying. Unlike the first attempt, I am not going to touch this for about 3 or 4 days. I'm going to make sure the paint is completely dried before I even attempt to go near it. I do not want to make the same mistakes that I made on the first attempt of my control medal. A couple of days later, it was the moment of truth. Removing the cardboard from around the control medal was slightly nerve-wracking. My previous attempt, as I mentioned, had been atrocious, and I was very worried that it wouldn't look anywhere near as good as I was hoping. However, I was extremely pleased with the final outcome. The alternative spray paint I've used has actually done the job very, very well. The finish is extremely reflective and it looks amazing. So now that I've finished painting the control medal and I've left it to dry, I think I should focus on the electronics that are going inside the unit. I wanted to install some electronics. I wanted the control medal to light up and I want some sound effects on the model as well. This is where I started playing around with the Arduino Nano microprocessor. Now, I'd never used the Arduino set before, and this is the first project in which I've used any kind of electronics to this extent. Therefore, I had to look everything up online. Luckily, YouTube is a very, very good resource on how to begin and get started with the Arduino set, and there are hundreds if not thousands of tutorials available. One of the benefits of using Arduinos in projects such as this is that it's very inexpensive and accessible. Despite having very limited experience in programming, I found the software very easy to use and understand, and after maybe about 20 minutes or so from beginning, I actually had a flashing LED light. Now, I know that that doesn't sound particularly exciting by itself, but when you come from a pretty much non-existent programming background and you manage to get some LEDs flashing, it is actually very rewarding. I soon realised that if I wanted to include some sound effects, it was best to add an additional MP3 player module to my setup. Again, this was very inexpensive, it cost a couple of quid on eBay, and it really helped to bring my idea of this model to life. It was also a good time to invest in a few small cheap electronics, such as a breadboard, a set of jumper wires, and the rest of it I pretty much scavenged from bits I had lying around the house. The LEDs that I used were recycled from an old set of Christmas tree lights, and the speaker was from a pair of broken wireless headphones. I also decided to include the previously built control medal and the lighting that I was using as a way of encouraging myself to focus on the project. Seeing the control medal light up and fade and hear the sound effects at the same time was very exciting, and it gave me a good indication of how the final project would actually turn out. In addition, my two youngest children, Nathan, who's 3, and my daughter Michaela, who's 12, both took a keen interest in the electronics as well. Nathan found it incredibly exciting to press the buttons and set the lights off and hear the sounds. And my daughter was interested in creating a traffic light system using 3 coloured LEDs, a little project that I did on the side. Now, if you are a parent yourself and you are interested in getting your children involved in any kind of electronic projects that are fairly easy to start with, then I would definitely recommend looking into the Arduino sets. Now, what I will do is I will post some links down below in the description to get you started, and also some links to items that you can buy fairly cheaply on eBay or Amazon. In the Manga version of the Guyver, the outer casing of the Guyver unit appears to be made up of some solid metallic material, and I knew that I wanted to emulate that as closely as possible on my model. For the outside protective casing of the model, I had always planned on using some sheets of EVA foam. I took to YouTube for some inspiration and some research, and after watching several cosplay and costume building channels, I realised that the foam is actually a very, very good choice. It can be easily shaped, it can be stuck together, and it can be formed into the shapes that I wanted.
Why couldn't that work?
The first thing I needed to do was work out exactly how the outer shell was going to be covering my Guyver unit. Unfortunately, at the time, I didn't have access to a printer or kind of any way of getting a nice, even spacing around the unit. I initially tried to mock up some templates using some barbecue skewers and some paper. However, I tried to work out the shape and the size without any kind of measurements, and it really wasn't working for me. So I decided to scrap that idea and go back to the drawing board. I realised that if I was going to do this properly, then I would probably have to use some sort of desktop publishing software. So I went on my computer and I used a vector-based graphics program. Using the software, I then created a pattern which I printed out onto some plain paper. Carefully cutting these paper template pieces out, I then transferred the design onto some EVA foam and then cut it out to use for the model. However, because of the thickness, or lack thereof, it was far too flimsy to use as a protective casing by itself. So I decided to replace that with some thicker EVA foam. I was under the impression that the best source of EVA foam was some mats that you can buy for putting on the floor. The problem is that what I bought wasn't EVA foam. This was actually PE foam, which is completely different. The thickness was about right, but unfortunately I soon realised I wouldn't be able to use the PE foam by itself. Having done some quick tests off camera, I realised that there was a possibility that I could use the thin EVA foam on top of the PE foam if I used some contact cement to glue them together. By having the EVA foam on top, it allows me to shape and sculpt the model, and the PE foam underneath provides the rigidity that I was looking for. I feel that all is not lost with this combination. I took some time and mocked up part of the outer casing using the combination of PE and EVA foam. I must admit I was pleasantly surprised with how well it turned out. Although still quite rough, I feel that by the time I include some sanding and some filling and painting, it might look quite effective. And it's a technique that I plan on developing further. A word of warning: if you are using a contact adhesive such as this one or anything similar, then please make sure that you follow all of the safety precautions provided in the instructions. Adhesives such as these ones can emit toxic vapours or fumes, which can, at best, cause irritation to your breathing, and at worst can be extremely fatal. Always make sure that you work in a well ventilated area and use appropriate breathing apparatus such as a gas mask or respirator. Please note that dust masks such as this one are designed to prevent particles from entering your lungs. However, they may not prevent you from breathing in toxic fumes. As always, enjoy making your models, but be safe at the same time. After practicing my technique off camera and giving myself a stern talking to regarding health and safety, I felt a lot more confident and forged ahead creating the foam pieces for the outer casing. So all that I have now left to do is to install the electronics into the model, finishing assembling the outer casing and give everything a good paint before I can finally release the potential of this Guyver unit. Now if you are enjoying this series, then please give this video a thumbs up. Don't miss out, hit the subscribe button as well, and you'll be notified when I post the next and final video when I complete this unit. Till then, have fun, be safe.